The Little Rascals Daycare Center was a daycare in Edenton, North Carolina, where, from 1989 to 1995, there were arrests, charges and trials of 7 people associated with the daycare center, including the owner-operators, Bob and Betsy Kelly. In retrospect, the case reflected daycare sex abuse hysteria, including allegations of satanic ritual abuse. The testimony of the children was coached. In January 1989, allegations were made by a woman that Bob Kelly had sexually abused her child. After investigation by a police officer and social worker, the conclusion was the allegations were valid and parents were urged by the authorities to have their children evaluated for abuse. A total of 90 children, after many therapy sessions, in some cases as much as 10 months' worth, also made allegations resulting in accusations against dozens of people besides Kelly and charges against 7 adults, Bob and Betsy Kelly, 3 workers at the daycare, a worker at a local Head Start facility, and the son of a judge. The charges ultimately included rape, sodomy and fellatio, and publicized allegations included the murder of babies, torture and being thrown into a school of sharks. During the trial, children were asked to testify about events that had occurred 3 years previously, with memories refreshed by therapy sessions, meetings with the prosecution and repeated discussions with their parents. While the alleged abuse was occurring, no parents noticed anything unusual about their children's behavior to indicate abuse or torture. The 8-month trial against Bob Kelly was the most expensive in North Carolina history, ending in conviction on 99 of 100 charges and 12 consecutive life sentences. On May 2, 1995, all convictions were reversed by the Court of Appeals. The remaining 6 defendants were charged with a mixture of charges ending in a variety of sentences from life imprisonment to 7 years. Accusation. The Little Rascals Daycare Center was managed by Betsy Kelly, with help from her part-time plumber and golf pro husband, Bob. In January 1989, a parent accused Bob Kelly of abusing her son at Little Rascals. The allegations were investigated by police officer Brenda Toppin and members of the Department of Social Services. In February, 3 additional children made accusations, and Kelly was arrested in April 1989, charged with child sexual abuse. The police department suggested to local parents that they have their children assessed for possible abuse, and provided a list of recommended therapists. After repeated questioning by police and their parents, a small number of children made disclosures of abuse. Other children made disclosures only after long periods of therapy, some lasting as much as 10 months. Ultimately, a total of 90 children made allegations of physical and sexual abuse, which was claimed to have occurred between September and December of 1988. The allegations were made against dozens of people in the town, but ultimately 7 were arrested. Bob Kelly in April and 6 others in September 1989. These included Betsy Kelly, the daycare facility's cook, Dawn Wilson, and 2 teachers, Robin Biram and Shelley Stone. Scott Privat, the son of a local judge, owner of a video store and personal friend of Bob Kelly, and Darlene Harris, who managed the nearby Head Start program facility. The trial was relocated 60 miles away from Edenton due to difficulties in finding an unbiased jury. Defense attorneys claimed they were hampered in preparation of their case due to lack of access to files and the child witnesses, as well as the extensive preparation of the children by the prosecuting attorneys. The trial was relocated from Edenton to Farmville due to local publicity. The attention became national, May 1991, with the broadcasting of a documentary, Innocence Lost, as part of the PBS series Frontline, which suggested that abuse of the extent alleged by the state was impossible. In March 1992, Mr. Kelly, 43 years old, was facing 100 charges of sexually abusing a dozen children in 1988 and 1989 at the Little Rascals Daycare Center. Originally there were 248 charges involving 22 children, but the prosecution had withdrawn many charges while Judge D. Marsh McClelland, dismissed others. The assistant district attorney said, Their reactions fit the pattern of a traumatized child. They're a consistent picture that paints abuse. Robert Kelly. Each defendant was tried separately, with Robert Kelly the first to be tried. Testimony lasted 9 months, with 12 children providing descriptions of sexual and physical abuse. Babies ritualistically killed, victims taken out on boats and thrown overboard, and inappropriate trips in hot air balloons. In April 1992, Robert Kelly Jr. was convicted of 99 of 100 counts of rape and related crimes against children. One of the mothers of the 12 children that testified against Kelly stated that she felt overwhelming relief. The 6 other defendants, including Kelly's wife, had trials later. The jury believed the children on the witness stand. One juror stated, "The children were convincing." Kelly and his supporters maintained that he was innocent. Kelly was convicted and sentenced to 12 consecutive life terms in prison. The trial included 83 prosecution witnesses and 60 defense witnesses. The children had testified that Kelly had forced them to have different types of sex. The parents testified that the children exhibited abnormal behavior. 12 children, between the ages of 4 and 7, testified, and the results of physical and psychological tests of them were presented as evidence. Dawn Wilson, the daycare center's cook and one of the accused, refused all plea bargains and elected to stand trial. During her trial, 4 children testified against her. After deliberation, the jury convicted her and she was sentenced to life in prison. Betsy Kelly. In January 1994, Betsy Kelly had been in prison for 2 years awaiting trial. She accepted a plea of no contest and a sentence of 7 years in prison. She served an additional year in prison and was released in 1995. Case reversed 6 months after Betsy Kelly's release. The North Carolina Court of Appeals reversed the convictions of both Robert Kelly and Dawn Wilson, stating that there were legal errors by the prosecution. On May 23, 1997, the prosecution dismissed all charges related to the Little Rascals case against the 2. The others. The state dismissed its charges against Shelley Stone, Darlene Harris and Robin Biram. Biram had by then spent 1 year in prison awaiting trial. After serving 3 years in jail, Scott Privat had his bond reduced from $1 million to $50,000, and he was released on bond. Rather than face a trial, Scott Privat accepted a no contest plea. Scholarly explanations. Scholars have proposed that these accusations were part of a broader phenomenon, a general fear or hysteria called satanic panic. Other daycare staff were similarly accused of committing acts of violence against children during the 1980s and 1990s, and many accusations involved Satanism. In popular culture, PBS Frontline examined the case in their television documentaries, Innocence Lost, 1991, Innocence Lost, The Verdict, 1993, and Innocence Lost, The Plea, 1997. The 1993 and 1997 documentaries won Alfred I. DuPont, Columbia University Awards. See also Daycare Sex Abuse Hysteria. List of wrongful convictions in the United States. References